everyone, hope you're doing well. This week we have an electric vehicle. This is the first electric vehicle on my YouTube channel. This is the 2025 Cadillac LYRIQ Sport 3. So this is all-wheel drive, so this is the dual motor setup. Fully loaded basically. I mean, you can get the V, but when it comes to just the normal Cadillac LYRIQ, this is the top of the line. So I've mentioned this in other videos where I want to do other things than just talk about the car. So in this video, we're gonna head to a small town called Port Stanley, which is just 40 minutes outside of London. And we're gonna head to a coffee shop that I've never tried before. And right now I have about 72% battery in the vehicle, 373 kilometers of range. And when I arrive at this coffee shop, it says it's going to have 64%. So we're gonna test and see how accurate that is. Now, just before we get started here, let's go over the basics for the LYRIQ. The LYRIQ was Cadillac's first electric vehicle offering. It came out a couple years ago. Its main competition would be the Genesis GV60, the Genesis GV70e, the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV, and the BMW iX. The LYRIQ starts at a price of $71,000 here in Canada and $60,000 in the US. The LYRIQ is available with either a single motor in rear-wheel drive or a dual motor all-wheel drive setup. Regardless, it has a 102 kilowatt hour battery with up to 525 kilometers of range for the rear wheel drive and 513 kilometers of range for the all wheel drive. So not a huge difference there. Now the big difference comes with the horsepower. The single motor makes 365 horsepower and the dual motor we have here makes a whopping 515 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque. Then, because 500 horsepower isn't enough, we have the Cadillac LYRIQ V, which is $95,000 in Canada. It makes 615 horsepower, and it's much more performance-oriented with adaptive damping, Brembo brakes, launch control, and so on. But that's not what we have here today. Today, we have the Sport 3. All right, so we're 15 minutes into our drive and it is reading 63% for our arrival in Port Stanley. So it's keeping about the same. It was about 64% by the time I actually got away that it was estimating the battery would be at when we get there. And so right now it's saying 63%. I have 357 kilometers to empty. Now keep in mind, getting out to Port Stanley here, there's not a whole lot of stopping. It's mostly country roads, so I'm not getting a whole lot of regenerative braking. All right, the coffee shop is right behind me. Let's take a look and see just how accurate the range estimator was. So 338 kilometers worth of range left. We did about 42 kilometers, which means we should be at about 331 kilometers. So I would say that range estimator is pretty accurate, pretty good. We're actually getting a little bit better range than it said. We only lost 6% of battery coming to the beach. All right, we got ourselves a coffee. Fits in the cup holder nicely. Yes, I also put my lenses in the cup holder sometimes. And we got ourselves a muffin. So let's see how this is. All right, I devoured my banana muffin, so I didn't actually film that or show you. I was starving. But this coffee is really good. So if you're in Port Stanley, the Harbor Merchant Coffee Company is a good spot to hit up. Okay, so we have left Port Stanley and now we have a big straightaway and I want to test out launching this LYRIQ. So let's see how fast this thing can get to 60 miles per hour. We are at about 65% battery, not full, but let's see. All right, everything is 100% gonna go flying, but let's try this out. 3, 2, 1. Like the most, it really picks up as you go. 5.09 seconds. That's fast. Didn't really feel like oh, I was in tour mode. Let's put this in sport. I didn't realize I didn't have it in sport there. All right, so 3, 2, 1. It's really delayed. That's weird. That was 5.01, so a little bit quicker. All right, I've got the tires warmed up. Let's try this again. Traction control off, sport mode, 80% battery. Let's go. It's better. 4.99, there you go. So this is quick in a straight line, but in the corners, how does it feel? Well, it is a very heavy vehicle. And when you put your input into the steering wheel, it's kind of delayed. Everything in this vehicle is a little bit soft. Everything happens slowly. And that's a good thing for a luxury vehicle. Everything is very smooth. The one pedal drive, really good. And it's not an abrupt stop when you're using the one pedal drive. Like when I let go of the gas, it's just very calm. I find myself hardly using the brakes. I just use one pedal drive, especially in the city. Just get really good at timing it. Even the accelerator, even in sport mode here, when you hit the gas, it's kind of like gradual power. It just keeps getting better and better as you keep going. It's not like an instant feeling, which is fine. This is a luxury vehicle. When it comes to quietness in the cabin, pretty good. It's a windy day, not hearing it much. The only thing I'm really hearing is the tire noise, and it's because this has winter tires on it. You'll still hear the tire noise even with summers, but it's just extra loud because of the winter tires. Visibility out of the cabin is pretty good from up here. At the back there is a decent blind spot, but I haven't found it to be much of a concern. You have so many safety features in here. You've got a 360 camera. It's not that big of an issue. The blind spot's not actually the big problem. It's these giant headrests. When you check your blind spot, all you see is the headrest here. So there's been a couple of times where I check behind me and I'm like, oh, all I see is headrest. I gotta go just a little bit more to see what's in my blind spot. When it comes to the ride quality, it's good, especially considering this has 22-inch rims on it. Now, over certain road surfaces, you do really feel like the jitters from those big wheels, but for the most part, the ride quality is pretty good. This doesn't have MagneRide or any kind of adaptive suspension. It's not quite as smooth as some other Cadillacs that are available. Overall, it's a very comfortable experience being behind the wheel in this LYRIQ. It's very easy to get around in, and I think if I were looking at one and I lived in a climate without snow, the rear-wheel drive would definitely be more appealing, especially one with 20-inch rims, as opposed to these 22s. I would definitely need to try out the rear-wheel drive before making a complete opinion, but I don't find the acceleration in this dual motor to be overly exhilarating. Don't get me wrong, it does have great passing power at higher speeds, but it is incredibly heavy at 6,000 pounds. The base rear-wheel drive is about 400 or 500 pounds lighter. If you own a rear-wheel drive LYRIQ, please leave a comment below and let me know if you think the rear-wheel drive has enough power. I would definitely be interested to hear your opinion. One other thing to note before we start looking at the exterior and interior of the vehicle, the dual motor can tow up to 3,500 pounds, whereas the single motor is not designed for towing. So just keep that in mind. All right, if you guys have been following this channel for the last 2 months, I mean, that's as old as it is, you'll know that I film on this road pretty much in every video. And this week we had a pretty crazy storm and there's a lot of damage on the road this week. That whole tree looks, well, half the tree is down. All right, let's talk about the outside of this LYRIQ. This is the Sport 3. So this costs around $85,000 as spec'd here in Canada. It's about $74,000 in the US. Now this color here is called Argent Silver, and I think this is the best color you can get a Cadillac in. I really, really like Argent Silver. Some people might think it's boring, but I think it makes this car look really sharp, especially with all the blacked out bits. So because this is the sport version of the vehicle, we get a slightly different front end than we would on the luxury trim. The lighting sequence is a little bit different on the grille area, and I think that looks really cool. Why don't we hop in there and just make those lights turn on. This is how you would turn your lights on from inside the screen. Turn the car on, all right? And then you would just hit here to turn your daytime running lights on,
or your headlights. So we'll just keep the daytime running lights on for now. So that's how it looks. We've got the logo lit up there, very cool. Just a very smart looking front end. And because this is the Sport, this area is blacked out. A little bit different down here as well, but otherwise mostly the same. Around the side, we have 22-inch rims. These are massive. They're running winter tires at the moment, so those aren't the tires the car actually comes with, but they do look sharp, especially for EV wheels. Sometimes EV wheels can be really funky and ugly. These mirrors do fold in and out as you unlock and lock the car. And then new, because this car wasn't launched this way, we have actual door handles. So when the vehicle first launched, this was a button and then you grabbed a handle up here and pulled out. And then as you come over here, you can tell that this has a black roof. That's pretty sharp. And then you see this really cool rear tail light that goes all the way to the back here. Very cool when it does the lighting sequence, as you saw. Also helps with visibility from the side for other people seeing you. And then at the rear, this is where the design kind of falls apart for some people. They don't really love how the rear looks. Very futuristic. I don't know how well that rear end will age. The front end and the side look really nice, in my opinion, but this is pretty funky. I think the optic is a little more traditional or a little more easy on the eyes than the rear end on this. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you guys think. Now you may notice there is no wiper blade back here. I haven't really had an issue with it. It has rained a lot this week and I haven't found myself needing it, but interesting that they didn't put one there. Really nice aggressive looking spoiler back here, and then sort of a secondary spoiler there as well. We've got the 600 E4. The 600 just means the torque number in Newton meters. If you're wondering where the button is to open the trunk, it is the Cadillac logo. So you just press that down and bam, very nice. Now in the trunk, you have a lot of room. This is a fairly large trunk space. When you have the seats down, it is 61 cubic feet of cargo area. Underneath here, we have some more storage. That's where you'd probably put your charging cables and stuff. Well, that's where the charging cables were. If you don't, you can use it for extra storage too. It's pretty deep. And then if you want to get these seats down, you do have buttons. So you just hold these down. So 61 cubic feet of cargo space when you've got those down. And then your charging port is over here on the driver's side of the vehicle. Basically what you do is you press the Cadillac logo, just like that, opens up, and then you can just plug in and charge. If you want to close this, you just hit this button right here. Overall, I think it's a really good design, especially from the front and the side. The rear end's a little interesting, and I think maybe the optic is a little bit more palatable for some people, and it will be a little bit more affordable as well. Hopefully I get to drive the optic, kind of want to see what it's all about. I'm already seeing those everywhere too. Cadillac's doing a really good job breaking into the EV market, or GM is, I guess.
If you're new here, every week I put out a poll on Instagram and YouTube to get sort of your feedback on the design of the vehicle that I'm reviewing. I put out a poll basically just saying, do you like this, yes or no? And for the week with the LYRIQ, we got 364 votes and 73% of you approve of the design on the LYRIQ. Now, I think if the rear end was slightly different, that would be a higher approval rating, but that's just my opinion. If you're wondering what I'm sitting in right now, this is a 2025 Mazda 3 turbo sedan. So if you know me, or if you've been to this channel before, you know that I own a Mazda 3 turbo hatchback from 2021. So I wanted to see what's kind of updated, what's changed over the last 4 years, and I wanted to also see what's the big difference between the sedan and hatchback aside from the hatch. And if you want to see this video, just make sure to subscribe, and it'll be out in about 3 weeks or so. All right, so the first thing you're gonna notice in the LYRIQ is this 33-inch screen. Now it is 9K resolution, which is, I mean, it's so clear. The clarity is really, really good. Saw this in the CT5 that I had a few weeks ago. Loved the screen. This has a few more features on it compared to the CT5, a few more displays for the gauge. And I really like it. I think it's a really good user interface. It's not glitchy. Everything works very seamlessly, very smooth. And then the fact that we do still have physical buttons in an electric car is money. I'm saying this because the competition in this segment, like Mercedes, BMW, they're using their touchscreen for basically everything. And it's really nice to see physical buttons in an electric car. Now, speaking of Mercedes, we do have a column shifter, very similar to how Mercedes does it. We do have our seat controls on the door panel as well, very similar to Mercedes. Lincoln is actually kind of stepping into this
design as well a bit. Materials are pretty good in here for the most part. I would just say this center console area where you put your arm and elbow is kind of hard, which is interesting. The Mazda CX-70 I was in last week was way softer than this one, so that is something interesting to note. But on the door panel, it is spongier and a little more comfortable. Just interesting they didn't put something a little softer over here. It is a little blingy in here. We've got sort of this knurl effect around the cup holders. Cadillac calls this jewelry for your rotary dial to control the screen. So if you don't want to touch the screen, you can use a rotary dial. It is a little flimsy feeling. I think they could have gone with something a little more solid. Genesis does the rotary dial really well, but overall, I think very, very nice interior. This LYRIQ does come with Super Cruise and it works incredibly well. I love it. It'll lane change for you. It's just a very good system. Doesn't make you feel nervous or anything like that. And then if you're wondering how to activate Super Cruise, the button is right here next to your heated steering wheel. The heated steering wheel works very well all the way around. Of course, you're not going to get any heat from here where the Super Cruise light is. Really like this monochromatic Cadillac logo. And then there is one other button. It's kind of like a paddle shifter, but only on the left side. It is for regenerative braking. You would just press this down and then the car starts braking. Basically, if you don't have one pedal drive on, you can press this down and then brake with that button. But I just kind of find myself using the one pedal drive and I don't really find myself using that button ever. And then with your one pedal drive, you can set sort of to normal or high or off. And I find normal is just the nicest way to use one pedal drive. So we have a few different displays here on our driver's display. We have this, which is called Gauge, and then you go to Energy, a bit different looking there. It's a little more minimal. We have a map, which you can project Google Maps to right there. Very cool. Then we have this assist mode. When you're in Super Cruise, it'll show you the car in front of you on the highway and stuff. So it's just kind of a very cool graphic. And then we have Clean, which is just very minimal, which I don't love that one. I think I like the Energy or the Gauge one the most. And then over here, we do have Google built in. We do have a screen for charging, and you can kind of set this up and have your car charge at certain times, schedule it. And then you also have drive modes over here. So you have Tour, you have Sport, Snow and Ice, and then My Mode. And you can kind of configure that however you want. And then we do have a good 360 camera, and it works pretty good. No complaints with that. And then we have ambient lighting, and you can make this adjust to the drive modes, or there's a bunch of different themes in here. It's pretty minimal. It's not bright and crazy like Mercedes ambient lighting, but it's a nice amount, I would say. And then I know it's crazy, but this LYRIQ does still have Apple CarPlay. A lot of GM EVs are not offering Apple CarPlay, which is so strange to me. But as you can see, that's how Apple CarPlay looks like. It doesn't fill the entire screen, but it kind of fills in the gaps and makes it look like it's a full screen. And then interestingly enough, we have a button for the glove box and the touchscreen. So that's kind of funny. If you've seen Throttle House's video on the LYRIQ, they have a really funny skit on trying to get this glove box open. If you haven't watched their videos before, make sure you do so. They make incredible content. They're just 2 hours up the road in Toronto. The next button onto the side here is your one pedal drive, so you can activate it from here, and then your motion sensor button. And then as we move down to this sort of floating console, because this is an EV, we have more space up here. I'm not always a fan of open concept storage. I think it's nice when you have something to cover it so that people don't see all your valuables in the vehicle. But anyways, lots of room in here. There is also another storage compartment right here. You can press that open. And then you have a wireless charger here, which gets your phone kind of out of the way and helps you not be distracted. I mean, it's illegal here in Canada to have your phone out anyways, but I know in some states it's not in the US. Now these seats are pretty cool. They have speakers in the headrests, but one thing I find is that it makes them very wide, and then it kind of affects your visibility when you turn your head to look out at your blind spot. The seats themselves are fairly comfortable. They are kind of flat, and if you are a tall person, they don't go out very far, and there are no leg extensions. But they are 8-way adjustable, and they are heated and cooled, and you can get heat on your back as well. And then if you're wondering, how do I get out of this thing? Well, there is a latch right here on the door, and you just pull up and you can get out like that. And then we do have a rear view mirror camera. This is also a pretty nice touch to the interior here. It just says Cadillac and it's got the LYRIQ right there. And then there's also a nice leather grab handle. And then I forgot to mention this AKG sound system, which has the headrest speakers. It's a decent sound system. I felt like it sounded a lot better in the CT5 than it does in the LYRIQ, but I mean, you'll probably have no complaints with it. Now here we are in the back of the LYRIQ, and it's very comfortable. And these heated seats work really well, and they get nice and warm up in the back too. So that's a plus. You got your own climate control back here. We've got that same open pore wood design with the ambient lighting that comes back here. This big glass roof is really cool. Lots of visibility. You don't feel cramped back here at all whatsoever. We do have cup holders right here, and then we do have 2 USB-Cs and a full out 3-prong plug. In terms of reclining, you can't really. This is one level, and you can kind of go back a little bit. All right, so there are 2 dual chargers up here, and the cool thing about these chargers is you don't need an app, you don't need to sign up for anything, you just literally use your credit card, pay for it. It's great. All right, so we have this charging. It says we will be ready at 5 p.m. It is right now 3:53, so it's gonna take an hour to get it to 90%, but I'm just gonna let it get to 80%. So I did pick the fast charging, the 200 kilowatts. We are getting 90 right now. So we'll see how much this costs to get from about 36% to 90%. This is a cool display when you enter the vehicle, and it kind of gives you an idea of how much battery life you have. I've got about 37% right now, so only about a third of the lights are on at the moment. All right, so we are above 80% now. That's 422 kilometers worth of range, it says. And from here, I can see I've spent about $17 for about 38 minutes. So to conclude, my week with the LYRIQ was surprisingly easy. However, if those 2 chargers near my place didn't exist, I'd be driving 25 minutes across the city to find fast charging. When it comes down to buying an EV, the infrastructure is truly the biggest question mark. They are convenient when you have a home with a personal charger. However, if you live in an apartment or a townhouse without a garage, they become a bit annoying to live with if you don't have the proper infrastructure nearby. Now, when you think about the competition, the Cadillac LYRIQ is a value buy. The BMW iX starts at $88,000 here in Canada, which is where this sort of tops out if we exclude the V. The Mercedes EQE SUV is more expensive, and I'd argue the Cadillac has far better styling than either of those 2 blobs. The Audi Q8 e-tron was the other German competitor, however it was recently discontinued, so I can't talk about that. The next closest competitor would be the Genesis GV70E. I would argue that vehicle has better fit and finish and a slightly nicer interior, but it's also more expensive at a starting price of $85,000 Canadian. Now, having driven a number of electric cars, they basically all kind of drive the same. Their motors are just calibrated slightly different. So if I had to pick between the other 3 mentioned, the Cadillac would definitely be the value buy. It's got the best styling in my opinion, and it is the most affordable out of those options. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. Next week is going to be the 2025 Honda Pilot Trail Sport, so if that vehicle interests you, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.